Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for joining us during our first Lunch and Learn for Talent Search and EOC proposal writing gathering here on the first Monday of the new year. So happy New Year. Hope you had a great holiday season. I have with me Dr. Teresa Thompson Pickney, and also we have in the background there, but always around, is Donna and Leah. Of course, with chat we have open. Also, we have Q&A for our questions, any questions, and so that we can try to answer between Teresa and I. You should be seeing on your screen our website, right, Teresa? Is that what you see?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll constantly asking for feedback, as you know, it's been a minute since I did this. So last year, right? Thanks for joining us, everyone. Just a reminder, we meet every Monday from 12 to 1 p.m. Central to talk about anything and everything dealing with the Talent Search and EOC proposal writing. It's our time that we can freely talk about that because we're off the clock, so to speak. If you've missed any of our previous webinars or want to go back and check them out, you can go to our YouTube channel. We also have, I believe, every single free webinar we've offered is listed on there. So you can go and look at that whenever you get a chance. We also have the APR webinar recordings for those of you still working on associated with SSS. We have some upcoming seminars. We'll be at Texas Trio and on Sunday, February 22nd. If you're associated with Upward Bound or Upward Bound Math Science, guess what? Your time is about to start to be thinking about doing needs assessment. So this will be an allowable cost workshop on site because it's talking about the regulations dealing with needs assessment, also delivery of services. We tie it into the regulations to make sure that it's completely in compliance. You can do that online. In person. If you're not going to be attending Texas Trio, you're in other parts of the country or in Texas, but not planning on going, we'll also be providing it on March 3rd. So if you also manage or associated with those programs, please check that out. Information about that is on our website. And right now, if anybody's associated with SSS or Upward Bound, we're also helping with the APR technical assistance. And just to let you know, we have some free trial courses for our Wix courses. We've gone ahead and made one of our sessions, the overview session, is available as a free trial. If you want to check it out to see if you like the format, the content, the resources that you're getting, the to-do lists, the quizzes that you get at the end of the first session for EOC and for Talent Search, then you might want to invest in going ahead and purchasing the full, the additional 9 other sessions on demand, each one with resources, access to a Google Drive with resources for both EOC and Talent Search. Check that out. Now, keep in mind, those are not an allowable cost because you cannot use grant funds to try to get additional grant funds. All right. So it's going to have to be an investment by your agency or institution. We do have one of our allowable cost free trial for our umbrella regulations impacting all TRIO programs. So that is free, of course, but then the course itself would be an allowable cost because they're considered professional development courses. And so if you like the format and content of that free session that you can log on to right now and register for, then you can decide if you'd like to go ahead and purchase the other 7 sessions for each program that we have listed here. These are allowable costs because they are professional development courses, as opposed to when we're actually talking about proposal writing like we're doing right now is an unallowable cost. Your time and effort spent on writing proposals needs to be done after hours or some sort of agreement with your institution or agency so that you are not you're not getting paid your hourly your salary to work on proposals. You do them on the weekends, after hours, or in some other agreement. And that's why the online courses are really cool because you basically get the benefit of the live version that we present that you normally would have to take a vacation day or comp time for to attend during the week or during the workday, but now you can listen to those after hours on the weekends as well. If you have any questions about that, please go ahead and put it in the chat. We also have a lot of other services here, as y'all are probably familiar with us talking about them, and check it out. 90% of our services are allowable costs. It's just when it comes to proposal writing that we have to say and be very clear to say, look, you cannot use project funds. Teresa, you'll be surprised every year. I have one or two clients, bless their hearts, we're in the middle of grant writing and somehow it comes up and I'm not no, you're not supposed to be. Well, I didn't know. So we try to be really good about putting it in our contracts, on our website, and also reminding y'all. And also we have the regulation floating around here somewhere. I know on our website when we talk about our proposal writing services, we actually put the the document there, or the regulation that says, no, this is not an allowable cost, so just keep in mind. So it's right here. In fact, here where the allowable cost a regulation we mentioned right here at the very top, just to let you know. Okay, so Teresa, how was your holiday season? Was it nice, or you mentioned you were working the whole time like I was probably?
Well, not the whole time. I took a little bit of time off, but my mom, well, my dad came. My mom came for Thanksgiving. My dad came for Christmas. So everything was good. I got some rest, and so I've been back to my normal work schedule, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning since the new year started. So
Oh, wow.
trying to catch up.
And Teresa and I are opposite schedules. See, I'm going to bed about 3 or 4 in the morning after working from like 9 o'clock at night, especially this time of year, Teresa. That's where I find I am the most productive because I don't have emails coming in to distract me because I get distracted by them. And then, no one here at the house. They're all asleep. It's
hmm
nice and quiet. I can get some stuff done. Teresa is up at 3 or 4 in the morning already working, and that's the way it works for you. So let me know in the chat, y'all, if you are early riser. Are you more like a Teresa or more like a Lisa? Early riser or not? Either way, we're do what works for you, and we need to get going with this. Teresa, I don't know about you. I have a sense of urgency. I feel like any minute now, any day now, you're going to, because you're going to be up early riser. Okay, y'all, good for y'all. More like
More
Lisa.
like
Hey,
Lisa.
Heather, nice to see you. Yeah, you got to get me up. But Teresa would be the person that's going to let me know because you're on to some sort of uh, uh, a Federal Register
Mhm.
alert.
Yep.
So if you want to tell people about that, I don't know how they can get on that, or I just rely on Teresa. Basically, I said if anyone's going to know if this is going to drop, it's going to be Teresa. She's going to let me know.
I don't know how I registered for it, but I'll find out and I'll drop it in the link at our next session. Because I did
Okay.
it like probably about 15 years ago. So
Yeah, and so it's automatic, and so
mm-hmm.
you get something from the Federal Register letting you know, hey, this is going to drop, and you
Mm-hmm.
usually find out 24 hours ahead of time when it officially drops.
Yep.
So yeah, so everyone says early rise, a lot of early risers here, more like Lisa. Hey, some of my people are out there, you know. Yeah, but we're used to it and we're gonna have to get used to it. It tis the season. So again, the number one question, Teresa, everyone is asking me, when do you think this is gonna come out? Let me ask you.
The first time I've ever been, well, probably the second time. 2025 was the first time. 2026, I go into it saying, I have no idea. I have no
Mhm.
guesses at this point.
Yeah. So yes, I just feel it could be, but do you not have the sense that it could come out tomorrow?
So what I do believe, and what's there's a pattern, is that it could potentially be due within 30 days versus the 45 to 60. So that really makes a big difference with regards to how we plan and do what we need to do. And so I think that's the main thing that I would not be surprised if, the 50 grant was dropped and we had probably what, 25 days, not really even a
Less than
month.
30 days.
Yeah. And then the one prior to that was in July. There were a whole lot of Department of Ed grants that were dropped or released, RFPs released, and notice no, NIAs released, notice inviting applicants. And they had like 2 week, some of them had 2 week turnarounds. And it's, so I think the biggest piece here is making sure that you've already been doing the work so that it doesn't hit you as hard as it could. But as far as whether or not we're going to have a competition, I'm leaning more on the side of yes than no. I just, I'm just fearful for those programs that are waiting until the last minute to actually write.
I am too, and I forget who I was talking to who had been out of Trio for a minute, and was what's your sense, what's your feeling about this? And I said, look, I've never been more clueless than I ever have about a release date, or just. But I do feel Teresa is telling me that it could drop any day now, and that we'll be lucky if it's 30 days.
Hmm.
And a lot of us are used to, oh, well, they usually give us 45 days. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we'll be lucky to get 30 days notice. And no, I mean, they won't adhere to any complaints about, well, you should have given us more time. They would have been, hey, you knew this was going to happen, right? You knew. And
Hmm.
for those of us that have been around for a while, you knew it was about this time.
Right.
So I don't think we're going to get any extra time or any sympathy there, and we're going to waste time kind of complaining about it. And this is the other thing people need to realize, y'all. When it has been turned in, or when we, historically, right? It's, or going by the last competition in 2021, it was due in January or February. I can't remember now, but I think it was due late or early February. I think the last week of January, or the first week of February. Even then, Teresa, it was very difficult to get our award notification. It wasn't until mid to late July
Hmm.
when they
Hmm.
let us know, oh, you have money again starting September 1st. So, you know, I struggle with this. I go, okay, I got more time. It hasn't come out yet. I got more time. I got more time. Oh, I hope it doesn't come out in the next 2 weeks because I got this plan. Well, you realize as you hope for it to wait for the submission or application to come out, or the RFP to come out, every day that it gets pushed back, it's another day of our notification that we got funding is being pushed back too. So you see, you can't have it both ways. You can't hope that it doesn't come out anytime soon and then expect for your money to be ready. Now, Teresa, you mentioned a competition that came out, and you mentioned also to me that they would be making the awards super fast, that we wouldn't be
Um,
like Trio, but have those award
so
notifications come out.
the grants that I wrote, they have not heard anything. They reached out to me, around New Year's or the
Mhm.
31st. Both of them reached out to me, and they had not heard anything, and they still have not heard anything. So we don't know if it's because they didn't get funded, or if it's because they did not release it on the 31st, or release
Like
the
they said.
funding in the G5. That's what was articulated on the technical assistance workshop that I
Mhm.
attended. So it did come from the
Mhm.
Department of Ed that they would be releasing the funds by the end of the year, and that it would be available for the duration of the grant by December 31st.
And see, I'm so glad that Teresa's part of this, because she has been. I have yet to be part of a competition that occurred after the government shut down. But stopped, and the Department of Ed was, federal programs were up and running. So you participated in that competition, and like Teresa said, the thing that was unusual is that it came out, and then they said it's basically due in 20 days, possibly. I think 2 weeks business. I mean, like business days, 2 weeks, for millions and millions of dollars, more so than our upward bound. I mean, our EOC or Talent Search grants on an annual basis. And then they told them at the technical review workshops online that, oh yeah, these will be read, scored, and awarded by December 29th or something like that. And Teresa was following up, and they haven't yet heard, but that was said. So that's a different, pro competition than, of course, Talent Search or EOC. But I was just kind of using it as a guinea pig as to, okay, is this how they're going to do it now? If they say they're going to do this, but are they prepared for all these hundreds and hundreds of applications with the limited amount of staff that they have? Which probably is why it's taken so long, right, Teresa?
I also think it's important to share that there were some technical difficulties with submission. So there were people who completed their proposal. One of my clients, they we finished the proposal and everything in time. One submitted before 12 o'clock that day that it was due. One tried to submit around 2 or 3 o'clock, and the system was shut down. It was something wrong. So there was a whole, and then I have another colleague who had not submitted yet, and they had to go through this whole process to talk to the help desk to make sure that they got a confirmation number and all of this information, even though they could not submit their proposal. So there's a whole nother process there that really impacted a lot of programs. And so that right there, then about a week later, they sent out communication saying that we understand that there were grants that were not able to submit. If you got your number, meaning you called the help desk, you stayed on that telephone for 2 to 3 hours, and you got that number that you had to get, then basically they were saying that they were going to open it up so you could go in and submit. So with all of that happening, I just have to think about how realistic, when you have Christmas break coming and you have people taking off and vacations and all the things that are happening, the realism of whether or not those could be the funds would be released by the 31st, because that is a holiday.
Mm-hmm.
That's a holiday week or whatever. So,
Mm-hmm.
but again, they should have notified the ones who were not funded. But again, we don't know, if that's the reason why they haven't heard anything, or if they just did not release the funds when they said that they would.
Well, Teresa, also, it's great that we have this community here, because someone just put in the chat, thank you, Anthony, that the federal government just did a funding turnaround for rural transportation funds, 50 billion, 1 billion per state, which was due early November, just right after the shutdown, I guess. And the funding was awarded early last week, different division, but funding turnaround was really quick. Yep, it could. So,
Yeah, yeah. But that was November. It was due in November. This one was due in early December,
yeah.
which put it in
So,
a whole nother.
but just to let you know that
It can happen. Yeah.
it can happen, and for a lot more money than our, annual. Oh, yes, Catherine. Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, I still see you might want to change your name on there, because I'll keep referring to you as Anthony. Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate that. You know how Zoom, you have to change your name on the thing. Donna had a couple of poll, if you want to issue that poll about what section people are, I guess, worried about the most. We do have a couple of questions, Teresa. I'm going to take the first one, and I'll ask you to, if you can look in the Q&A, and if you look at the one about the quality of personnel, we do have a poll here. Which section would you like us to talk about today? Let us know. I'm ready to jump around and share some screenshots or of our PDF from our grant writing workshop. Now, again, unless you actually purchase the online or the live version, can't really share those with you, but I can show them on the screen, and we're having this recorded, so you can always go back and do that. So we've got the poll going on. Let me answer the first question. Thank you, Sharon, for your question. How should we properly use acronyms in the charts? Spell it out first and then use acronyms, or just the acronym if we've already explained what it stands for in the text. So great question. Usually in the charts, I'm going to spell it out. The first, if it's going to be a site or a data source that I'll be using over and over again, like with the state of Texas, like the Texas hired TEA, Texas Education Agency, right? Under my first chart, I'll probably spell it out and put the initial in the parentheses TEA. And then from then on in subsequent charts, I'll probably refer to it as TEA. I might even mention it briefly under the first table under definitions, perhaps, to do that. Some people I noticed with my clients, Teresa, are plugging in just the website, which is great when you're doing your data collection spreadsheet. But I would not recommend you put the link, because sometimes a link may not work. And sometimes from the link, I can't really tell what the source is, Teresa. I'd have to backtrack, and you don't want a reader to I wonder if this is a valid link, and then have to do research on their own. So I would strongly recommend in your final tables that you write out the sources, though, if you have room, you might want to put the link, but it's more important to put the data source, for what year the data source is for, and then also what date you pulled that data or you compiled that data. I think that's more important than putting the link only. Teresa, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. And you don't want the reader to, so you talked about the reader going and doing research. I just be careful about adding on opportunities for them to find something wrong with your proposal. Meaning, if they do happen to have time to type in that information or what have you, and it's not working, it's just another reason for them to potentially dock a point. I don't know, but I think, it's important to just make sure. I think traditional APA, or, just a citation is enough. And having your
Mhm.
bibliography, holding on to your bibliography in case you're ever questioned about anything.
And internally on your data collection spreadsheet, yes, you should have that and probably
Correct.
and the
Hmm.
links
Hmm.
like crumbs you could figure out and double
Yeah.
check things internally. So I totally agree with you, Teresa, on that. I also want to mention very briefly that throughout the rest of the proposal, you know how we first talk about, the talent search project or EOC project of the University of Texas at San Antonio, for example. I might spell it out the very first time at the beginning of each section, but then after that, to save space, I'm going to use the, UT, whatever, UTSA, UTA, whatever I can to save space, because that's what I'm struggling with right now already is the space on that. So I may, spell it out, the agency or the institution name at the very beginning, and then from then on, try to make sure. And some people say, oh, we want to use this instead because it's supposed to be the branding. I said, well, the branding is going to make it so that we have to cut out some good stuff just to be in compliance with your internal branding. So what is it going to be? That kind of thing. Real quick before I turn over Teresa to talk about that quality of personnel question, the section that folks are most concerned about, or I'm not concerned, but what to talk about is the needs section. They want to talk about the needs section, need for the project, and that's followed up closely by evaluation plan, which we did talk about in detail. I think the week before we took that break for the holidays. So I urge you all to go back and look at that. I think we did a really good overview of the questions and trying to get some flow. The main thing about the evaluation plan is write it so that it makes sense to you as though you were explaining it to a colleague, about your different components of a comprehensive evaluation plan. That's what I would recommend. Make it make sense to you. And then it's followed up by the plan of operation. I think mainly because it's such a big section. And we have talked about that briefly, some questions, but I think the next time we meet, Donna, if you could please remind me that we'll talk about the plan of operation a little bit more. But it looks like the need for the project. But before we get started on that, to me, Teresa, the one section, and thank you for helping me with that, is although the quality of personnel to me has always been one of the easiest sections, I think moving forward, it's a section that's going to cause people a lot of grief moving forward. Let me give you an example, Teresa, before I hand it over to you to answer that question. People hear me, people have seen the trigger words and all this other stuff. And then I just looked at something over the holiday where I had given a client something that was already pared down that removed any of that language. And then the client, it wasn't really the client I was working with directly, but someone like the PI, you know, looked at it and said, oh, we need to plug this back in about preference and looking for folks that have gone through the same background. And I'm like, this is obviously someone who hadn't been directly working on the TRIO programs, a couple of levels removed, still thinking we needed to go back to that language, or forcing mention of, well, the person's got to be bilingual. And then I said, you can still do that unofficially, but please don't put anything like that here in the quality of personnel. So there's still people holding on, or the folks that they need to get approval from, going back to that and not realizing how something as simple as making sure that preferences for someone who's bilingual could actually be a trigger and cause them grief. So we have a question here about the quality of personnel.
Okay. So the question is, in the quality of personnel section, can we still say experience with virtual classroom spaces? Do you recommend some different language? Also, should we mention anything about the American with Disabilities Act in regards to the office space having handicap access. So I'm going to respond yes, that both of these two elements are relevant, but definitely the way in which you articulate it, you'd want to make sure that you're careful with that articulation. And so, with the refinement of the first question, which is revolved around experience with virtual classroom spaces, I would tighten that up a little bit by rephrasing it and just kind of and saying a couple, one or two things such as experience delivering student services in virtual and hybrid learning environments, demonstrated experience supporting students through a virtual engagement platform and online learning spaces. So just talking about that they demonstrate or they have the experience with those particular elements versus saying that they have it with those elements. It's the experience and that they demonstrate that that they've done those things in the past. Um, and then with regards to the other one about the American Disabilities Act, I would, thinking about, the way that the executive orders read, basically they want you to they want everybody to have access and not be treated unfairly. So there should be an element of equal opportunity. However, we do have to be careful. I strongly encourage you to be careful with the language. So perhaps when we think about the American disabilities piece, I believe that it's appropriate to say that the project maintains office and services locations that are accessible and compliant with the American Disabilities Act. So just basically, saying that you're gonna be in compliance, and it's for them students to have access to. And you may decide not to use the words access, but it may be that you say well, access is what it is. You may, if you want to find a different word, but trigger initially, access was a trigger word, but when you're using it in this context, you're just making sure that everybody has an equal access to the services that you're providing. The project office space and service locations meet ADA accessibility. I think that the first way that I said it is more, less triggering, I guess. I'm not sure how this could be triggering, but it may be a trigger there. What are your thoughts, Lisa?
I know that I usually mention, it's like a two-part question. Um, uh, when I don't mention that by name, except I briefly mention GEPA, very briefly, in the applicant and community support, where we talk about our facilities and things that the agency or college is going to offer the project. And I mention it very briefly, as per the general education provision, whatever. All facilities and equipment or whatever facilities at the college or agency are accessible to blah blah blah. That's it. But I don't tend to mention that at all in my quality of personnel. Okay. I don't mention that as a qualification. I just briefly mention that we're an equal opportunity employer, but I don't bring it up at all.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, of course, not in the quality of personnel. No, that's not where I talk about the ADA.
Applicant community support, and then very briefly in the plan of operation, where we talk about the plan to deliver services, almost word for word, copy and pasted a sentence. Because now we have that entire GEPA form that goes into more detail. Now, that's a good way to connect it, though, when you're writing the GEPA separate statement, to connect it or mention as stated in the proposals applicant and community support section, blah, 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 as stated in the proposals plan to deliver services, blah, blah, blah. So there's a tie in there, but very brief, because now we have a total, we have that separate document. Back in the day, Teresa, when you and I first started, it was a big deal to include within the proposal mention of that. And now there's less, because now the focus of that is a separate document that's turned in with the attachments. Okay. So thank you for that. We did have a question about, let me see her answer live, and I'm still waiting for the response because, okay, what tables? We're going to talk about the needs section. I wasn't sure if it was for talent search or EOC to talk about, because what tables will I include in the needs section? I have completed the Excel spreadsheet Nosotros provides. Okay, so all those tables, almost all of those tables, and I'll review which ones you do have to have for sure. And we threw in a couple to beef up the need, because in your need section for both EOC and talent search, I want to stress that you need to make it look gloom and doom. don't throw any type of positivity or any mention of, well, that's why, Talent Search or EOC is going to pick up the pieces and save the day. You have the rest of the proposal to talk about how great your existing program is. But in the needs section, it's like it doesn't exist. So you've got to not only come up with the tables that directly relate to the objectives and provide the direct baseline that you will be not only to show need, but also when you get to the objective section to show that there's a connection. Because Ben, you mentioned that last time you lost points because the reviewer could not see the association between the need and the goals in the objective section. So number one, I typed back, let me know if this is for EOC or Talent Search. I'm assuming Talent Search, I could be wrong. And specifically, did you lose points in the needs section? I kind of already maybe know the answer to this question. You probably lost points in the objective section because the reader probably said they couldn't see the baseline. And I will tell you that it is it's misleading, I think, Teresa, the questions in the needs section for both Talent Search and EOC. It's not a perfect match, what I mean, with the objectives. So you kind of have to know, okay, this is what they asked for by, like when someone, like if I asked Teresa a question and I asked her a question, but I didn't like give her the complete background of what I needed it for later. And then I can come back and tell Teresa, well, I'm sorry, Teresa, you didn't give me the answer I wanted completely. And you're like, because you didn't ask in that way. So it's kind of tricky. Unfortunately, you would think that, okay, I'm going to answer exactly what they say in the needs section. So when I go to the objective section and I plug in my information, the reader comes back and says, oh, no, you didn't, in Talent Search, this happened to me, Teresa, when they asked, the reader said in the objective section, you did not give me the 12th grade graduation rate for regular or the 12th grade graduation rate for rigorous. You gave me the cohort, and that's not what I need for the objective. So then I look back at the needs section, and the needs section says, you didn't say, that you needed, it said the graduation rate, right? Or the persistence or graduation rate. You weren't that specific. That's why you need to read ahead. So if anything, take a look at the objectives, the way they're worded, and you have to make sure that you get the correct detailed the baseline that they're specifically asking for, and you need to force mention of that in the needs section, even if the needs section does not ask for it by name. Okay, and that's both for EOC and Talent Search. I'm going to bring up the Talent Search one now, but I think we have a couple more questions. Anything? Let me see. Maybe I'm missing. Okay, we have some open questions. So we're done with that question. Oh, it's for EOC, the objective section. Got it. I appreciate the suggestion. So yes. So let's look at the EOC section for those folks. And how many folks, Donna, do we have a poll about how many folks we have that are with EOC and Talent Search? We can look at that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll launch that in a sec.
Great. Okay, great. And I'm going to bring up, I happen to have, bear with me, y'all. You're going to have, this is a group project. You're going to have to say, yes, Lisa, I see it. I went ahead and brought up ahead of time, except I can't find, I have it, but let me see, needs section, Talent Search, EOC. Okay, here we go. And I brought it up, but I don't think I'm sharing it. Okay, let me share. If I can share, this might not be the right PowerPoint, but okay, what I'm sharing with you comes from our grant writing workshop. And again, I forgot about the sun here. So I'm going to turn my camera off in a second here. All right, so you should see it, right, Teresa? Do you see the EOC? Okay. All right, so again, everything is based on the 2020 application, the RFP application. I don't think they have time to change it. I will update this as soon as we see anything different, but I doubt it, right, Teresa? They would have to literally have to act of Congress to change this stuff here. Yes. But anyway, I'm going to go forward. Okay, so again, EOC, you want to make sure you have a table for the high number or high percentage or both of low-income families residing in the target area. And this is the same for Talent Search. So you definitely need a chart here, and you need to show for both Talent Search and EOC that your target area has more or a higher percentage of low income families residing in the target area compared to either the state or nation or both. Okay, there's no objective related to it, but it's worth, at least with EOC, 6 points. Okay, I can't remember off the top of my head how much it is for Talent Search. Then also for Talent Search, you'll need an EOC, you'll need a table about the high number, percentage, or both of individuals residing in the target area with educational completion levels below the baccalaureate degree level. So make sure when you answer this that you talk about the high percentage that do not have a bachelor's degree. Okay, don't forget to answer it in that manner. Thank you. Yes, we have more talent search, but the same thing. Thank you, Donna. The same thing here is that we are for Talent Search or EOC. The only difference is EOC does not have an objective about how many students that they help get into college will graduate, but Talent Search does. So this table here is very important for Talent Search as well, not only to get you the points, but then it's going to be, the baseline is going to be brought up in the objective section when you talk about, well, what's your objective on how many of your students are going to graduate from college within 6 years of high school when they go off to college. All right. So I know these two tables you definitely need to have in both Talent Search or EOC. In Talent Search, the second table people usually use this as their baseline. So you got to make that connection to the reader. You can tell them, as previously stated in the needs section, the baseline was this. Therefore, the project will set their objective as this. Then you have to explain why it's ambitious yet attainable. Okay. Let me know, Teresa, if you have any questions or you want to just raise your hand. Then for EOC, a high need on the part of the residents in the target area for further education and training from programs of post-secondary education in order to meet changing employment trends. This is, I think, one of the hardest questions I've ever had to deal with. Teresa, you probably had a lot more experience in non-trio things where they require this intensity here. There's no objective on this, right? There's no objective based on this high need. There's not really a percentage. You have to show in quantitative and maybe qualitative, but getting quotes or talking to people there in the area to help you with this. But there's no baseline to that, but some people use a chart, some people use narrative. Number 4, other indicators of a need for an EOC project, including the presence of unaddressed educational or socioeconomic problems of adults in the target area. This is where, Teresa, I answer with my baseline ultimately about how many adults in the target area do not have a high school diploma or not involved in a GED program. That's the baseline then for objective A, as to how many folks you're going to help to get their GED or get back into high school. So the baseline for that, it doesn't ask it here, right? It did not say, tell me how many adults do not have a high school diploma or are not in a GED program. It didn't ask you for that specifically, but you have to provide that. And I usually put it here in this answer. My last answer in the EOC needs section will include the baseline to all the 4 objectives. So I start with that one. Then I have to bring up, hey, another need is that there's so many adults that don't fill out a FAFSA, don't complete a FAFSA. Well, I'm gonna have to get the data for that to show that. But see, I'm bringing up the baseline for objective B in EOC. Didn't ask for it specifically, but I have to provide it here. The third objective is the number of adults that apply for admissions. So I got to bring that up. I got to find the baseline and force the answer here. And then the last one is how many adults go to college, enroll in college. So I have to force it here. So I already know that although it's not asking me specifically for the baseline, I'm going to force it. And then I'll add on other things. But the first 4 things I mentioned are going to be the baseline. Okay. And that's how I tie it into the objective section. So I'm just thinking that perhaps it wasn't clearly stated in the needs section, the baselines. So that's why the reader struggled when they got to the objectives. And they're like, where are you coming up with these percentages? Because I don't see here where you review, where you copy and pasted from the needs section. I don't, this information isn't spelled out for me very clearly. You know, y'all, we spent an hour here talking to y'all. Within that hour as a reader, I should have gone through, you know, a good portion of your proposal. You know, 2 hours is a good read. If they're spending more than 2 hours, it's not a good read. So they're just, Teresa, right, skimming through and looking for the answer. They don't have time to say, let me try to help this person out. Where is the connection? I cannot have that conversation for the, I don't know if they still pay the measly $100. You know, I'm not that invested. I'm like, give it to me. Give me the answer on a silver platter. Don't make me hunt for it. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Teresa.
No, I agree with everything that you said. I do try to, in my objective section, because because all of the baseline is coming from the need section, I always put the page number so that they can go, if they want to go back and look, then they don't have to go hunting. They'll see that this is what page it's on. So that's just a pro tip that I do just to make sure that I decrease the likelihood of getting points reduced in that between those two sections.
And even if they don't look for it, Teresa, just the page number itself says, okay, you know, just with me though, I have to be careful because I'm constantly changing stuff or reformatting stuff. You know, y'all know, right? Out there, make sure the page numbers match. But I think, Teresa, that's an excellent idea because even if they just see the page number
Yeah.
in the objective section where it was mentioned, I may leave it alone because at least, you know, and also I remembered from the needs section, an experienced reader knows that they're going to make or break you with that need section. So they do spend more time on the need section and they specifically look for the baseline. I'm looking for I see it there. Okay. Yep. And she put the page number. I got it. I got it. You have to be that Captain Obvious, you know, the commercial by Captain Obvious. Don't feel, oh gosh, it's so simplistic that I put everything in the last question in the need section and I put baseline for objective A. Oh, that's too elementary. That's too condescending. No, it's not. You want to label it like this. You want to say baseline for objective A in the needs section. If anything, you can copy and paste it as review in the objective section. So they have to be talking to each other. And the same thing, let me switch over to talent search real quick here to get into those. And you can still see my screen now. Now it says talent search, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the first two questions are the same. I'm going to go over to, for talent search, what we need from the target schools. Because the same thing with talent search, you know, talent search, if you just look at the questions in the needs section and only answer specifically what they ask for, you're not going to get funded. You got to know, you got to look at the objectives for both EOC and for talent search and see, okay, I've got 5 objectives for talent search. I need a baseline for each one of those. And so I'm going to figure out, some of them are obvious as to where they should go in the needs section. And some I'm like, I'm not sure where to put this. Whatever. It's a little easier to me in EOC. I just put everything under question number 4. It's a little different in talent search because sometimes they do specifically ask for something related to the objectives, or sometimes they ask for it, but don't tell you, oh, but the objective says for 12th grade only. So I better give it to you for 12th grade only, the baseline. It's got to match. So for instance, well, the first question is about the high number percentage of the following. You know, it's very similar to EOC, but the second question is the low rates of high school persistence among individuals in the target schools that evidenced by the annual student persistence rates in the proposed target schools for the most recent year for which data are available. I get this question all the time, Teresa. What year should I use? What year should I use? Hey, it says there in three of the questions, the most recent year for which data is available. And some people say, well, you know, last year's data doesn't look as bad as the year before. Which should I use? The most recent year for which data are available, right? I have to go back to that. I can't tell you what to, you know, you do what you're going to do, but the question itself begs and tells you, hey, what's the latest information you have for this? Now, this used to throw me off, Teresa, believe it or not, because it says low rates of high school persistence, right? But then they want to know from all the target schools. And we do have an objective A, is the number of students in grades 6 through 11, or really it says non-seniors. Everyone who's a non-senior, the percentage of those students that return for another year in school at the next grade level. That's how the objective reads. It doesn't read perfectly. It gives you more detail than is stated here. So if I were to follow this, maybe I just put just my high schools down. And I'm like, wait a minute, I have middle schools. What about that? A reader could say, well, you didn't give me when I got to the objective section, when it was about everybody who's a non-senior, because that's the wording. What happened to your middle schools? Oh, well, I just read the first part, high school persistence. But then it says, as evidenced by the annual student persistence rates in the proposed target schools. And in the objective, when you do your APR, which a lot of you just did your Talent Search APR, it wasn't just students that came back. It was students that came back at the next grade level. So that's the way you need to pull the table also. And a lot of people are saying, look, we're struggling because they just promote everybody. Well, this is where you might have to add an additional rigor and ask the schools to pull it for those students that have gone to the next grade level, persisted, but at a certain GPA. And be crystal clear in your definition. These are students, and I would tie it into, since Talent Search is looking for students that have potential for post-secondary, and perhaps your definition of potential, which you're allowed to come up with your definition, is that these students have at least a 3.0, which is a B average. Okay. Otherwise, you might not be able to show the need. So this question here, or this chart here, I have to make sure to tie it into the baseline for objective A on persistence. Okay. And let the reader know this is the baseline, or put in parentheses, this is the baseline. Okay. All right. Any other questions, Teresa? I don't know if there's anything because I can't see on my screen right now. Are we okay? Just let me know. So then there's another table about the low rates of students in the target school or schools who graduate high school with a regular secondary school diploma and the standard number of years for which, for the most recent year for which data are available. This is supposed to tie in directly to objective B, the regular graduation with a regular diploma. All right. But when you get to the objective section or the objectives, the wording is 12th graders. So you see that in so many years, Teresa, I've used the cohort graduation rate from 9th to 12th grade. Why? Because that shows that's lower, right? Through the cohort graduation is always lower than just 12th grade from September, the 12th graders that started in September to the 12th graders that graduated in May. That's just 1 year. So that's so high, right? So I always naturally use the cohort to show a need. And I used to base my baseline for the readers based on the cohort. And this last time around, I got dinged. They said, no, just like Ben, the same language you probably got, where I'm not able to determine if this is the correct baseline, because you never gave me the baseline for 12th grade graduation. You gave me the baseline for 9th through 12th grade graduation. And I was like, what? It blew my mind, Teresa. I was like, I've always done it this way, right? How many times have y'all ever said that? We've always done it this way. I got full points. I got full points. Well, guess what? I should have never gotten full points. They were correct. I did not give them the right baseline. But if you look here, it doesn't say to. So that's why you got to look at the wording of the objectives, the wording of what you just had to pull for all your Talent Search students to get answers on your APR, and pull that for everyone at the schools, or use the same tables, be that specific. So in this table here for question number 3, I have to make sure I first answer the 12th grade graduation rate. Okay, from fall of 2024 to spring of 2025, if I have that. If that's not available, then I go back from fall 2023 to May of 2024, spring of the seniors only. Because if you don't state in the objective section and you don't initially provide the reader with just the 12th grade only graduation rate, you're going to lose points. Okay, you're going to lose points. And again, we're struggling to show need, Teresa, because it's so high.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm forced to do a Hail Mary, one of those passes like they did last night of that crazy game. Y'all know what I'm talking about, where you know what? If I leave it alone, I'm going to lose points because it doesn't show need. But let me throw in, just like I did with persistence, my 3.0. What if I went back to the schools and said, okay, I would need the number of 12th graders that started in fall of 2024, for example. Fast forward to how many graduated with a regular diploma in spring of 2025. But now we're only going to count it as a successful graduation if they graduated with a 3.0 or higher. And I'll put that in my definition because we're looking for students that have potential for post-secondary, and that's what we determine as having potential. Let's see if I can bring those rates down. I have nothing to lose. If alone they're super high in the 90, 98, 99, you're not going to get points. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to, but this is what I wanted to spend a lot of time on because this is something that if I didn't change it, I would get points taken off this time around across all our proposals if I didn't bring up the 12th grade only graduation rate for the baseline for this objective, and also for the rigorous secondary school program of study. It's the same number of students, same number of 12th graders, but not only did they graduate with regular, but did they graduate with the rigorous program, whatever you decide is your definition out of the 6 that you can. And I believe I did upload for Talent Search the definitions because people are like thinking, well, where are those? Or can we make up our own? No, you can make up your own definition of who needs the program, but you cannot make up your own definition of rigorous secondary school program of study. And that's going to have to be clearly stated in your needs section and the reader reminded of it in the objective section. But both those objectives on regular graduation with regular diploma and graduation with rigorous have to be based on 12th graders. Now, you can still go on after you give the reader the answer about the 12th graders only. And I still will include that cohort graduation, Teresa, but more as my more alarming. But it cannot be my baseline because otherwise I would be wrong. And they have every right to take points off because I did not provide them with the correct baseline. You could do the same thing for the rigorous, give them the 12th grade baseline, add on the 3.0 if you need to try to show a need, but then say more alarming is the number of 9th through 12th graders that ultimately, it's okay to bring up that additional academic drama, but you can't base your objective on that. You will lose points. Okay.
There's a question.
Yes, Teresa.
Okay, the question is, I would like to have Nosotros read my EOC proposal. I do not plan to use any TRIO monies to cover the cost. Can the request to read the proposal come after the EOC RFP is dropped?
It can. We don't have a lot of EOC clients right now. You just have to go under contract. And Donna can put the in the chat where you can contact us or in my email address to find that out and information about that. Thanks, Teresa. And yes, it could come. It depends. I need to see how many we have. I don't want to say yes, and then end up letting everybody down, right? Not having enough time to do it. That's why the sooner And you know what? Let me backtrack on that. You said specifically after the RFP comes out, right? I doubt we could do anything after the RFP comes out. I just listened to something saying you need to stop saying yes all the time, Lisa. So 2026, only because do it before, but I'm Teresa, I'm not going to take any contracts for new stuff after the RFP comes out. I can't because my first priority is to folks that already we have longstanding contracts with. So I hate to say no. I can try to refer you to folks, but we might be so busy we don't have time to refer. So if you need the assistance, it's got to be before. I mean, we continue that. Our contracts usually don't say, oh, sorry, we can't talk to you after this first review. No, we stay in communication. Just like with all our services, we don't say from a period and then, oh, the new RFP came out, something new. Sorry, you have to get a new contract. No, we're committed throughout up until the due date. So anyway, yeah, let me rephrase that. So again, I'm spending so much time in the needs section because it makes or breaks you. Honestly, it's getting harder and harder to show need. Make sure that all the baseline and EOC for all your 4 objectives I would recommend is in the last question of the EOC proposal, the need section for the EOC. For talent search, it's scattered about based on the questions, but when it's appropriate, like I mentioned in question number 3, that's usually where I provide the reader with the baseline for both objective B and C on graduation with regular and graduation with rigorous. Well, yeah, I bring that up. I'll bring it up there as well. And then for the table leading about college enrollment, they want to know how many students from your target schools go on to college. And so I'll put that there, and that's going to be the baseline for objective, in college enrollment. Completion is where a lot of times we have to use the census data, that question number 2, about the number of individuals that have a bachelor's degree. Let me go back to that. Well, it's in that other PowerPoint, other session. We may have to use that. Some people are able to, Teresa. I've never been able to get from the high schools the graduation rate of everybody that graduated from that high school. Is really tough to do. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever been able to do that.
It depends.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we have to use the census because those are adults 25 years or over, that don't have a bachelor's degree. And here we are setting it for the baseline. And that could be an issue this time. A reader could say, wait a minute, this doesn't really match perfectly. This is adults over 25 years and over that don't have a bachelor's degree. And then your objective is what percentage of students will get a bachelor's degree within 6 years. So you see, that could be a problem. Mm-hmm. So how do you get the baseline for the number of students from your target high schools that graduate from college? Some folks have been using their own talent search numbers as a sample. See what I'm saying? If they have an existing program. And we've always said, don't base your objective on performance, actual performance, in your objective section, right? At your baseline. But this may be a situation where it's actually more appropriate, apples to apples, if you consider a lot of y'all out there all of y'all who are existing just did your APR for talent search. And you probably, maybe you try to forget it, but you pulled data to find out how many of your students from 6 years ago that went to college for the first time from the target schools actually got a college degree. That, Teresa, may be more appropriate, and to say that it's a random sample of that and to base your baseline moving forward on that performance. I don't know, Teresa, we have a couple of minutes to talk about what are your feelings about that?
Yeah, I agree. Most of my writing happened in North Carolina. And so one of the places that you might want to check is with the, like the state funded institutions, that are colleges and universities. And one of the measures that I used was, I was able to find every year the information regarding this information for each of the target schools. I could see how many students applied to that school, how many actually were accepted by each individual school throughout the state. So you also may want to check into
That's true.
The state level data to see if they have that data as well. And we did it for public institutions in North Carolina. So.
You're absolutely right. Like in Texas, the Texas Higher Education
Mm-hmm.
Coordinating Board, maybe they can backtrack and go back to the target schools to see if they were able to track them. So do that. Yes. My last resort would be to bring up my existing data, which still, if you think about it, is actually more appropriate than the census data as to how many adults in the target area don't have. And also, sometimes people are saying, oh, look, only 8% or 4% or 5% of the people in the target area have a bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to use as your baseline, I hate having like 5%, like how high do I go? Do I say 10%? That kind of thing. So just putting it out there. But again, just to recap, a lot of times the need sections in these proposals don't give you enough information and could be in a way, not misleading, but not asking for the full story. What you want to do is look at the objectives and backtrack and say, where can I fit the baseline for each one of these 4 objectives in EOC And 5 in talent search, in the needs section, where should they go to make sure they're first mentioned there? And then I repeat it in the objective section. And if you do that, I mean, the reader could still give you some grief about it. I don't think that's too high or too, I don't think that's high enough. I don't think it's ambitious enough. Okay, whatever. We'll talk about that next time, how to set objectives. But they can't say, oh, you didn't give it to me. It wasn't in the needs section. They cannot say, I'm not able to figure it out because the data wasn't provided. And that, really, really bugged the heck out of me when it was so obvious when someone else on the outside looked at it, Teresa, and was obvious. I said, yeah, I can't argue with that. I was mad at myself. How could I get past all these years of getting positive feedback and not realizing the whole time I was wrong and they were right, So that's why if you're one of my clients, I go back and they're like, Lisa, well, you never asked us this before. I said, I know, right? And we were lucky, but I'm not going to let it happen again. Right. So anyway, get cracking on this needs section. Act like this thing is going to be due, ASAP. The rest of the proposal, Teresa, right? If you had to, you could lock yourself up for in your room, in your office for a weekend and crank it out. But the needs section, you can't fast track it.
Yeah.
You're going to need people on the outside to give you some information, people there at the target schools to get you some quantitative and qualitative information. That's what takes so much time to do. So get cracking on it. Teresa, any parting words for our folks?
I do want to share that I will be doing. I'm a trio priority trainer for new directors, and so I will be hosting webinars for the next 5 weeks every Wednesday for an hour and a half. So I've dropped the information into the chat if anybody's a new director and they'd like to participate in the new directors webinar, which is, like I said, an hour and a half for 5 weeks on Wednesdays.
Are they for any specific program or
No,
talent search?
this new director, so it's for any trio program at no cost, of course.
See, hey, onboarding, any excellent stuff, free of charge, and also they go through a lot of the regulations, so you'll be
Yes.
hearing some of this stuff, especially plan of operation, the rationale for the madness. So good stuff. Thank you, Teresa. Appreciate that. Thank you all for joining us today, and this recording will be available sometime tomorrow. Go to our YouTube channel, or you could click the link off of the blog posting, or I think you get it in the follow-up email that you received from us. So thank you, everyone. Happy New Year again. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Donna. We'll see you next week. Take care, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Teresa.